What's going on? Jared here with onX, and I want to talk to you a little bit about using the onX Hunt app for turkey season. So we're going to go over a number of layers and features in this video. We're going to check out an area in Kansas and an area in Mississippi, neither of which I've ever been. I just picked them out on the map. And so we're going to start up here in map layers. And so in Kansas, I have private lands, government lands, game management units, and walk-in layers turned on. And so first, we're going to dive in to the Kansas walk-in hunting areas. And there's a number of states that have these walk-in hunting access programs. What they are is they're opening up private lands for public access. States like Kansas, Iowa, Wisconsin, Montana, Idaho, Tennessee are a couple that come to the top of my head that have these walk-in programs. And when you zoom into the onX Hunt app, you're going to see these as red polka dots with a black outline is how these lands are going to be denoted. And as you can see here in Kansas, they also tell you when they're open. Sometimes they're only open for spring season. Sometimes they're open for the duration of hunting season, just fall. So always be sure that you check the extra regulations and just ensure that you can hunt those areas. But these walk-in hunting areas are an absolutely fantastic spot to check out when you're going to be turkey hunting this spring. The next one in Kansas that I want to call out is the Kansas game management units. So a bunch of states have particular turkey units, zones, whatever your state calls them. And if you go into your My Layers, and then once you find that game management units layer, if you click on layer settings, you can change that by species. So ensure you have your turkey units on for your given state if they have individual management units for turkeys. So now that we covered walk-in and management units, I'm going to bop down onto Mississippi and talk a little bit about public and private lands. So this is our bread and butter here at onX. This is kind of how we got our start, is having the most up-to-date and most accurate public and private land data. So whether you are interested in hunting this Holly Springs National Forest, which if you click on any of these designations of land, it'll tell you the landowner and then the acreage of that particular parcel. And then if you click on a private land ownership, let's say this John O'Haver, it's going to give you a tax address as well as the county and area and acres beyond the ownership name. So if you're knocking on doors, it makes it really nice to go up to a door and say, hey, Mr. O'Haver, I found your property. I can see your exact property lines. I oftentimes show the onX Hunt app. It gives them a vote of confidence that you are going to recreate responsibly on their land, not, bop over to their neighbors and cause an issue. Just gives you peace of mind, gives them peace of mind, and it's a great way to start your introduction at the door if you're asking for permission. So those are three big land ownership layers that I would recommend you put to use: public lands, private lands, and then walk-in layers. So next, I'm going to move back up to Kansas, and we're going to look at some of our crop data. So currently, you'll see in my layers here, I have in this tab crop data layers 2020. So by the time this spring turkey season rolls around, we will have updated crop data layers to show 2021, which will be pretty awesome because it'll take the crop rotation guesswork out of what crop is actually planted where. So if it was planted in corn this past fall, it's going to show that it was planted in corn in 2021, so you can count on it being corn when you get there. So as you can see, these walk-in access areas, some of them actually already have agriculture on them. Some don't. But as you scroll over, it'll tell you what crop is what: corn, soybeans. I also have wheat, winter wheat, and alfalfa turned on. There's some winter wheat, but we have over 19 designations of crop species. So whether you're in Alabama or northern Minnesota, whatever is planted, we're going to have you covered as far as helping you find food sources that turkeys are going to be concentrated in and around, especially during those earlier seasons when April, there's not a lot of new growth yet. There's not bugs hopping everywhere in big open fields. these birds are going to be keying in on these easy food sources. So it's a great way to get an idea from home on what's going to be around for food and really help you hone in to find more birds more efficiently on out-of-state hunts or hunts that you're not so familiar with that are maybe right in your backyard or right down the road. So that's another layer, crop data. Make sure you're putting that one to use. And now zooming back down to Mississippi, I'm going to talk a little bit about our tree species and habitat maps layer. So within that layer, there's actually 7 different layers within that folder. The 2 that I'm going to focus on for this video is deciduous versus coniferous trees. So simply just figuring out where there are hardwoods and softwoods in a combined area. And so when I zoom in to this particular spot, again, I've never been here. I just dropped these waypoints for the purpose of this video. But you can see as you scroll over, red is deciduous, this orange is a mixed, and then this more brown color is coniferous. Turkeys really thrive in diverse habitats, even more so than really any other game species, whitetails, mule deer, elk, you name it. Turkeys, if you can find edges of both hard and soft woods, combine that with some water, and more than likely you're going to have a gobbler in the area. So that's why this particular spot is super attractive to me. One thing I'll also do to find water more easily within the onX Hunt app is turn on our topo map. And then you can really start to see right here, you have this Bagley Creek, you have a Bagley Lake, a couple of these unnamed ponds. And then again, you can see there are mixed deciduous and coniferous trees all throughout this drainage. So this to me has a high amount of habitat diversity, which is one of the main things I'm looking for when I'm looking for turkey spots. So deciduous versus coniferous, use that layer to just help find habitat diversity and really hone in on an area that has that habitat diversity and in turn is really likely to have turkeys nearby. And then the other tree species and habitat maps layer that I'm keenly interested in when it comes to turkeys is acorn producing oaks. So not only is it a food source, but these also provide great mature roosting trees. So as you can see here, each little square represents a 30-yard by 30-yard area, and what is shown is the predominant tree species in that 30-yard by 30-yard area. So this one you can see is made up of about 3 of those squares. So there might not be 100% oaks in that area, but predominantly there will be oaks in that area. So looking at this, right back here by this Bagley Lake, you have this finger ridge that drops off with a bunch of mature oaks here. This ridge has a bunch of oaks on the top of it. These would be areas, this one here, that I would just be interested in from looking at a map. Turkeys, of course, like to use an elevated position to roost. It's easier for them to just sail out of the tree or hop from the ridge up into their roosting tree. So these areas are always ones of interest for me because they are definitely going to be likely roosting areas. Or if you have a particular tree that's maybe not an oak, or maybe longleaf pines are a predominant roosting tree in your area, or you know, a fir or a hemlock if you're up in the Northeast, you can go into these individual tree species and habitat maps layers settings, and you can find individual tree species to turn on. That way you can find the tree species that you find as the most common roost tree for turkeys in your area and hopefully hone in on gobbling birds this spring. So that's pretty much the layers I would recommend you use. To recap, public and private land ownership data in every state, walk-in hunting areas in the states that have them, tree species and habitat maps to find habitat diversity as well as roost trees, and then crop data layers to find easy food sources that are going to help concentrate birds and increase your odds of success. The next thing I want to talk about is some of our map tools that'll help you be more successful in the turkey woods. So custom waypoints. As you can see, I have a number of custom waypoints dropped here, from marking your truck to marking a roost location, marking a gobbling bird. I use them for all of these things. And the really cool thing about waypoints is not only can you customize the name, icon, and color to keep your map organized and help you understand at a quick glance what that waypoint represents, but you can also share these waypoints with buddies. And so if you roosted a bird last night, but you're not able to hunt him tomorrow, you can send that to a buddy, and hopefully he'll owe you one later in the season. So make sure you're using custom waypoints to, again, really mark gobbling birds, mark birds you saw, mark points of interest. If I'm scouting from home, I'll often use the color white in areas that I've never been and are untried and true areas, whereas I'll use the blue color, as you can see, of spots where I actually found birds, I actually roosted a bird, and it just helps keep my map organized, and that way I know exactly what I'm looking at a glance. And then the next tool that I use a ton in the turkey woods is our line distance tool. And what I use it for is a number of things. So right now I'm just showing you an example of potentially using it to map out your walk-in from the truck to a roosted bird that you pinned the night before or last week or whatever it may have been. And so as you can see, it helps me determine exactly how far my walk-in is going to be, what kind of elevation I cover in that amount of distance. And so that's going to help me plan, how much clothing should I be wearing? What should I bring? Another really useful case for that tool is, let's say you hear a gobbling bird, you drop a waypoint where that bird is, and then you can measure your line distance from exactly where you're standing within the Hunt app and determine how far away from you that bird is. So that's a really useful thing to do. If you can pinpoint where that bird is just looking at the satellite imagery combined with the topography, drop that waypoint on him, and then let's say he was 640 yards away from you when you heard him gobble, that's going to help you know, okay, I need to get within whatever you believe the bubble is of that bird to be successful in calling him in. In my opinion, it's usually within about 150 yards. So there's always that fine line of moving in too close and getting busted and not moving in close enough to entice them to come to your calls. So use the line distance tool really to measure any type of distance that you're unsure of to help you be more confident that you're going to make the right play, wear the right clothes, whatever it may be. It's a really useful tool that I'm using all spring. And then lastly, another thing you can do when you're scouting from home is click on this offline maps tab and then new offline map. And if you position this rectangle over the area that you want to hunt, you can quickly name it Mississippi turkeys. And if you click save, what that is going to do is that is going to send that exact offline map to your phone, and all you're gonna have to do is open your Hunt app and then tell that map to save. So you can plan from the web map, and that's gonna transfer over to your phone app, and it's gonna be seamless for you. That way, if you get to a hunt area where you're not gonna have service or you're unsure if you're gonna have service, just save a map ahead of time, and that way you can be absolutely positive that you're gonna be able to utilize the onX Hunt app in the field. And then the last thing is our weather. So we have weather built inside of the onX Hunt app for any given location. We have over 70,000 weather stations across the United States. And so it allows you to be in one app and make sure that you're planning your hunt effectively, knowing exactly, what time sunrise is for shooting time, what time you need to be out there in order to be there, slipping in under the cover of darkness. As well as how to dress, all of the things that come with weather. We wanted to have everything inside of one app. That way you don't have to be flipping between multiple apps. It's a one-stop shop within onX Hunt to make sure that you have the best hunt you can possibly have. So to recap, make sure you're using public and private land ownership data as well as walk-in areas and changing GMUs to turkey-specific management units. And then crop data layers to find food sources, tree species, and habitat maps to hone in on habitat diversity, and then custom waypoints and the line tool to really make sure you know exactly where that bird was when he was gobbling and figure out if you have the room to close the distance, if you need to find the nearest tree to sit down and start yelping. Those tools are going to be assets for you in helping you be more successful every time you hit the field. So utilize these tips and tactics this spring and have a great hunt.